handicap accessible. That's a good job, right? No, there's not really a job. I'm like, well, you could do a blog. I'm like, no. All right. So when I was hired to come, invited to come here, I said, okay, great. And they said, you have a 30-minute talk on Saturday. I said, 30 minutes? All right. What do you want me to talk about? A, how I got started. B, how a TV show started. C, my staycation. 4, or what is that? A, B, C. D, cancer. And she wrote back, E, all of the above. And I said, that's not 30 minutes. That's a long time. So I'm gonna do a brief on each thing, all right? Has anybody here in the audience ever been to one of my master classes or dance conventions that we've done? No? Well, gee, thanks. You can't get that bad profile all day long. I'm not gonna like it. All right, so I started my own dance competition team when I was 14. Now, I don't know if there's any kids here today, but I think JoJo is the only one I know that kind of started her own business at 14. So my mother owned a dance studio, a successful dance studio in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And prior to that, she was in Miami, Florida as a young woman and was a pioneer, and after World War II and blah, 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 started her own business. Married my dad, moved to Pittsburgh, hated it every minute of her life. And so she started a dance studio again, and then when I was 13, I had done pretty much everything. I was a brownie, a Girl Scout, roller skating lessons, ice skating lessons, swim team, junior golf. I was even a member of the garden club and did floral arranging. I saw someone doing floral arranging when I came in. I did everything and nothing well. That's the well-rounded child, means you weren't good at anything. And I danced. And I danced in my little class. And I went once a week and my dad took me, and that was it. My mother did not want me to be the studio brat and be there every day, all day, in the front, in the middle, in every number. She didn't do that, and I wasn't there under her feet. She got a lot of students because their daughters were like the stars and no other kid had a chance. And so my mother learned from that and was like, she is not going to be at that studio every minute. And so then I became more and more interested in dance. And every summer my mom would go away to the dance conventions, not competitions, conventions. And she continued her education. So I learned from some of the best, most creative people in New York City, in Los Angeles, everywhere. And she didn't take a big group of kids, she took me. And she put me in the classes, and half the time I was out at all the exhibitors, Dance Scan and Capizio, like, you know, talking and alone by myself with my own money for lunch. And that's what we did. So at 13, a letter came in the mail, a flyer. One piece of paper folded in 3 with the sticker on the outside. And it was a dance competition that was coming to Pittsburgh. We had never seen those 2 words together before, dance and competition. It didn't exist, not in Pittsburgh or anywhere in that area. Mom, I want to do this, I want to do this. She looked at it and said, you want to do a solo in this? What is this? Wait a minute, you're going to pay money to dance for people? That's absurd. You should be getting paid to dance. My mom's kids worked all over Miami Beach at the Fontainebleau with Elvis Presley, with Sammy Davis Jr. and the Rat Pack. When the band took a break, my mother's girls performed. She dressed those 15 and 16-year-old girls up like they were 25, and they were all getting paid. She was driving a Cadillac convertible and having her hair done every single week. Not in Pittsburgh. that wasn't gonna happen. Dance competition started. So I took 3 girlfriends that were my age. I did the costumes, I rhinestoned them, I cut the music, edited it, and that's when kids, you had to take a razor blade and slice the music on the reels and put it together. You couldn't do it on your phone, no. And I entered them in this dance competition, and they won. And when I had that 12-inch little plastic trophy in my hand, that's when I knew this is what I was put on this earth to do. This was my calling, what I was good at, what I should do. And I did it. So that fall, I asked my mom if I could start a competition team within her studio. And she said yes, one condition: everybody that tries out makes it. I am not going to lose students over this. So 14 little girls and 1 boy, 15 kids, made the Abbey Lee Dance Company, the original company. And one of the dance moms, Kelly, was actually in that original group. The one that physically assaulted me was in that group. So she had been with me for 30 years. 30 years was paying tuition at my mom's studio, and then, you know, eventually my studio. If you didn't like it, why'd you keep coming? Yeah. And her dad was divorced, and he was always dating these young girls that had kids. So he always brought them to the studio. And my dad was working the desk, and they were buddies, and he'd sign up the kid. And so he paid probably more tuition for more kids than anybody else ever did that. And like I said, if you didn't like it, you shouldn't have coming. So jump ahead. We jump ahead to my life. Now, I was very involved in dance organizations because dance teachers in the United States do not need a license to teach dance. There's no license for a dance teacher, none. So somebody can touch your child's body from the age of 2 to 18, and no government agency oversees that, none. So in my studio, the dance competition team grew from 15 kids to 148. I had about 380 kids in my studio, and that's big for Pittsburgh. And we were moving and shaking. We were competing every other weekend. I was flying to 4 different nationals with kids. Not their parents, not their mothers. Those advanced cream of the crop kids, not the kids on the show. The really good kids. Those kids traveled with me. And you know, the moms would say, well, look, we can go as a family, and she can go to 1 week, 1 event. Or if you're willing to take her by herself, she can go all summer. And that's what we did. We lived out of those suitcases. We did laundry at a laundromat somewhere along the way to wash all those leotards. And you know, we breathed, slept, ate, danced. And that's what we did. So my dream was to have a Miss Dance of Pennsylvania. And I did. I got that. Worked really hard, lost. Finally, I had that girl, she won Miss Dance. Then I had the junior Miss Dance, and the teen Miss Dance, and the petite Miss Dance. Then I had the petite Miss Dance of America at nationals, and the junior, and the teen, and the mister, and the junior mister, and the teen mister. And we were winning. And I was in that studio choreographing 70 solos. Even the tap teacher that taught the tap routine, if any of you dance, you know, I still had to do the arms. I still had to pick the music. I still had to do the facial expressions. I had to do it. And I loved it. It wasn't like I had to. I loved it. I loved everything that I did. So, sorry. I never left that studio. I was there on Sundays from 11 o'clock in the morning until 8 o'clock at night. You know, I probably had to lie and tell my mother I made it to 7 o'clock mass after dance. So that's what I did. And then my goal was a professional dancer. I want a professional dancer to create that, to produce that. And I did. My first student to dance professionally went to Tokyo Disney. And it's a great job. You live in a foreign country, your money gets wired back to the US, you're given a per diem to live on, all your expenses are paid, your housing, food, everything. So I had a girl do that. Then another one. Then a girl at Walt Disney World in Orlando, Florida. And back then that was an equity job, union. Now, Broadway. I set my sights. I want a kid in a Broadway show. Thank God that happened. And I was there in New York after driving them back and forth to auditions, mind you, from my studio. I drove, not the mother. I paid for the gas and the McDonald's and the speeding tickets. Me. I got the kid there. And I got a kid in a Broadway show called Footloose. And I knew the choreographer. I happened to know him from teaching, from taking kids all over the world. He was a master teacher at conventions. And he snuck me into the theater before the show had started. And I was sitting in that dark house the moment my student stepped on stage for the very first time on a Broadway stage. I was there to see it. And it was amazing. A month later, after the show opened, they called in one of my other students, a girl who didn't make it. She didn't get the job, but we went back and forth for 7 auditions, 7. She didn't get it. But they called her in a month later to be a swing. So a swing is the understudy. She was the understudy for 3 of the leads in the show. That 18-year-old college freshman at NYU, she went on a Martin Luther King scholarship to NYU. $60,000 a year she was getting. Now she was in a Broadway show making $3,800 a week to sit in the dressing room and do her homework. Because it was a young cast, nobody was hurt, nobody was injured or too tired. Yeah. 2 years later, the show closed. So now she's on unemployment and going to school for free. She did it right. She graduated from NYU with a communications degree, and right now, she is on her 8th Broadway show, and she is the director of the new Broadway show, The Notebook. You all know the book and the movie. It's turning into a show, and she's a director. So that's huge. And I couldn't be more proud. I wish I had 10%, but, you know, that's another story. That's my stupidity. So I have a kid on Broadway, and then the next kid. And then the next show comes along, and then the next show. And then Wicked happens. And my student is the dance supervisor of Wicked all over the world. Yes? I was at the Tony Awards in the audience when it didn't win. And should have. So, what am I gonna do next? What's gonna happen? My dad passes away. He was the one at the front desk after he retired. He was the one that collected the money. He was the one I trusted implicitly. Now, he's not there anymore. My mom's older, she's sick, she doesn't want to be around all those women. So I'm in a studio teaching and I'm relying on other people to handle my books, my livelihood. Not a good idea, not at all. And I'm trying to produce these amazing, talented winners because now I have a reputation to uphold. Now I can't go backwards, I have to keep going forward. So what's gonna happen next? Well, we're in Las Vegas, Nevada at a dance competition, and I run into an old friend, this hot guy. Most of my stories kind of start with that, yes. I've known him since he was a kid competing against my students. He's a professional dancer in Los Angeles, nearing the end of his career. His name is John Corella. So we're at this big, fancy convention at the Mirage, and my older kids are there. My better kids, the cream of the crop, they're there. They're doing great. But my little kids, it's their first time at a convention, a big national competition. They're at another hotel, a rinky-dink hotel called the Alexis Park down the street. You guys are from here, so you probably go there more often. So they're there. I say to him, I have to get in the car, I have to get in a taxi and get to the other hotel because my kids are competing. They're solos and they're little, it's their first time. Come on with me, come see them. So we jump in the car, we run down the street, and there they are, they go on. And there's Nia out there, and Paige, and Maddie, and other kids that you don't know their names. And he's like, oh my God, Abby, these kids are adorable. They should be on television. Yeah. In Pittsburgh? No, we don't have a lot of TV. Okay, so that was it. Then I took them outside to meet their mothers, and they were drunk and broke and laying at the pool, bitching about everything. The hotel, the rooms, there's bugs, there's this, there's that, and the food is horrible, and the convention's running too late, and blah, 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 blah. So we get back in the taxi, we head back to the hotel, and he's like, Abby, this could be amazing. Those mothers are perfect. And I'm like, no, the mothers that are perfect are the mothers of the good kids that are at the other hotel that you haven't heard a peep out of. Those are the good mothers. A year went by. A year of phone calls every single day, sometimes 2 and 3 phone calls. Well, what happens if this? Well, who enters the solos? Well, how do you pick the solos? Well, who gets to do them? Do they pick their own music? What about the costumes? Do the mothers make their own costumes? I'm like, what? No, I pick the costumes, I draw the costumes, I pick the music, Okay, so that's how it went. And he created a television show. His dear friend was the casting director for The Bachelor and The Bachelorette. And he took the idea to her and she said, you know, I think you have something here, but this is not for me, I hate kids. But I know a guy that does these famous birthday parties and stuff. I'm going to introduce you to him. So, John Corella met a guy named Brian Stinson. Brian will remain named as Satan for the rest of this talk. So John and Satan took the idea to a production company. Doors slammed in their face. Then they went to another. Not interested. Then they went to another. A down and out production company that never had a show go more than 1 season. That never had a hit. Collins Avenue Productions gave them $3,000 to shoot a sizzle. Now a sizzle is a 3 to 5 minute little clip of what the show is about. So it was just stock images of mothers fighting and kids crying, and mothers drinking and kids crying, and mothers screaming at each other and kids dancing. And that was it. Abby, do you have any 8x10s of your kids? Do you have them? Yes, they're on my computer. Okay, so I just sent them 5 or whatever, 10 pictures, and they chose them and stuck them in the sizzle, and some video of the kids dancing. Other kids, not those kids, my good kids. And that was it. Next thing I know, 11 networks are interested. 11. And then it, you know, as the meetings went on, it went to like 8, and then 5, and then 2. Lifetime and Bravo. Why didn't Bravo buy the show? So, Lifetime bought the show. But they changed the entire format. It wasn't about kids, it wasn't about dancing. It was a housewives show, just centered around a dance studio. Hence the name Dance Moms, right? Yes. So now they need a cast. And they come into Pittsburgh, and they've narrowed it down to 30 families. 30. From the thousands of applications. Who even knew about this? Did you know about it? You're right here near LA. Did you know about it? That they were casting a TV show? No one knew about it unless you were in my studio and I was telling you in my newsletters. They come to Pittsburgh, 30 families. 27 were my students at my studio. But the mothers like to convey to the world that if they would have gone to any studio, they still would have been on the show and been millionaires. I don't think so. 27. 2 were friends of mine that were dance teachers that had little boys that I thought would be fabulous on the show. They're funny, funny kids. No. And the 30th one was Kathy. Kathy was the first person cast on the show. Could you imagine if I did over 500 numbers, routines with Vivienne? That's impossible. Possible. So this is the big misconception with the kids. So the kids went into the interview and sat next to their mothers. Nobody danced. No one. Nobody danced. There wasn't a 5, 6, 7, 8, go. Nothing. I was not on the show. I was a on-camera choreographer, meaning if they caught me on camera, I wouldn't sue them for using my image. That's all it meant. I was just choreographing. Until I was teaching and a woman that we call Sinister Minister showed up. Her child came into acrobatic class with socks on and her hair down and an ugly t-shirt. And I said, get out, come back looking like a dancer. Meaning, go put your hair up in a bun or ponytail, get your socks off, take your t-shirt off, and come on in, right? Right. But no, she texted her mother. Sometimes I hate those cell phones. Texted her mother. The mother comes flying in, screaming at me, ranting and raving and blah, 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 blah. The kids were shaken up. They were scared, frightened. I ran out of the room. I ran around and around in a den. I grabbed one of my senior company's cell phones, flip phone back in the day, and dove right into that room. Now here you have my senior company, 16 to 18 years old, 27 members. Half of them are in this room on the floor stretching. The other half have to be in another room because we're using the big giant room for 5 little kids. Right there were problems. Because my own customers were being slighted for these kids on the show. These kids whose mothers sat upstairs and degraded me, defamed me, pointed the finger at other kids in the class and said, that child is ugly. Why is she in my daughter's group? Why did Abby put that kid in my daughter's group? Yes. My secretary heard her with her own ears, calling other people's children ugly. That was Kelly. It was horrific. And nobody sat in my studio. No mother sat upstairs. They weren't. They were busy. They had other kids to run around. But her. That was designed like for the babies' moms to watch their improvement and their growth and know what to practice on. Not to on other people's kids. So quickly, I open the phone, I dial 911, the dispatcher answers the phone. Officer Broadway, what's your emergency? Officer Broadway? Did he really say that? It was like the heavens parted and the angels were singing. I can't believe this. I said, I have this psycho woman. She's running around my dance studio. She's swearing at me. She's frightening the kids. Get her out. Oh, it's time to go. Oh, no. I want her off my property. I own the building. I own the land. Get rid of her. Does she have any weapons? And I said, just her mouth. So when that footage got back to the network and Satan went in there and manipulated it, yes, that is when I was put on the show. So they said they knew that they had something with the girls and the moms, but I was the glue that made it all stick together. And that's how the show happened. 2 weeks later, I get a call from the network. They're like, who is this woman? Who is this lady in these black clothes? Who is this? And John said, well, that's the woman's studio you've been using for free. That's Abby. It's her dance company. They didn't have pictures of me. They didn't have an interview with me. They didn't have my name and my electric company account number to pay the bill. They had nothing. It was supposed to be a 6-week docu-series, and that was it. So the network calls me and said, hi, how are ya? We need a new number every week. And I said, with who? Who's gonna do a number every week? Well, your cast. I'm like, Paige can't remember a number for a year. Are you kidding me? Those are not the kids you hired. The kids you hired look cute sitting next to their mothers. The really good kids were in the other room. When the show was cast, Paige, Chloe, Nia, and Maddie were in the same group. There were 18 kids in that competition team class, 18. 4 got on a TV show and 14 quit. So I lost that tuition, but not for that year. I lost it until those kids turned 18, maybe, possibly. Some of the moms came to me and said, are you sure this is what you want to do? Do you want to really reward these kids whose mothers don't pay their bills on time, who don't respect you or your staff, who don't go with the program? Do you really want this? You've spent your whole life building this business and your career. And I thought, but I have a kid on Broadway. I have a lot of kids. I've had kids in 24 Broadway shows. 24. And Bernie tells me to lift huge casting agents in New York City call my studio now, and they say, do you have a 14-year-old that does a left side aerial? We need them in New York City tomorrow. And I'd run into the room, acrobatic class. Okay, stop. Who does a left side aerial? Raise your hands. Do you look about 14? Okay, 4 kids. Go call your parents. You need to be in New York tomorrow at 4. And they walk back in the room, and one's crying, and one's pissed off, and 2 are just blank. What's wrong? Well, my dad said, this is Pittsburgh, mind you, this is the thinking. My dad said, I'm not allowed to miss school. That was Chloe. Not a minute of school could she miss. The other kid said, well, our car won't make it to New York City. There's no way I can go. The other 2, my dad thinks you're crazy. There is no way that I'm gonna get in a Broadway show. I mean, when I make it, what are we gonna do? Just move to New York? When I make it. They don't know if they're gonna make it. 1 out of 500. My mom can't take off work. Who took off work? Me. Who got a sub for my classes? Me. Who drove? Me. I told you that before. I believed in those kids more than their own parents believed in them. And that's still going on. Even though I've made some kids millions of dollars. Millions. I've helped. A lot went into it. But that's how the show started. And that's what happens. So I think that network kind of made me out to be this down and out podunk dance teacher from Pittsburgh that knew nothing, and I was just this big woman yelling at these tiny little kids. And that really wasn't the case. I had been successful in my own right, but not in television. So we were at the competition in Phoenix, Arizona. The very first big competition we went to was in Phoenix, Arizona, and they built a stage much like this, and I was at the foot of the stage, facing the stage, rehearsing the kids. Now normally in a dance competition you don't get to rehearse kids, but because of the lighting and the sound and the cameraman, we had to run it so they knew where the kids entered and exited. Because we didn't bring the crew from Pittsburgh, we had a different crew here from LA. So, I'm there, and Satan puts a piece of paper in front of me and said, Abby, you have to sign this or we cannot continue filming. You must sign this. I'm not signing anything till I have an entertainment attorney. I don't even know an entertainment attorney. Blah, 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 blah. Abby, turn around and look behind you. I turn around and I look, and there is a sea of people. Where you're sitting all the way back. He said every single person had to sign a paper before they walked in here because we're filming. He stuck the pen in my hand and I signed a paper. But mine was a little different than theirs. Mine was a 4-year contract with a 4-year option for $1,500 an episode. Now, then, that was nice money. That was extra cash coming into my studio and I needed it. Didn't know the woman at the front desk was stealing from me. No, I didn't know that until I needed a forensic accountant to fight off the IRS and the FBI. No, I didn't know that until years later. Yeah. So that's how it happened. And I did 8 seasons. I made a network, a lot of money. I helped make children famous. And sadly, for me, you know their names. And the good students and the nice parents that paid their bills on time and respected me, you don't know their kids' names. So I've learned from my mistakes and I've made a lot of them. And we're gonna do a Q&A right now, okay? So, get up, come on, newscaster man. Are you radio or television? TV, good. You probably signed a contract like I did.
I did. Okay, real quick, give it up for Miss Abby, everybody. Wasn't she great?
I saw some kids in the audience, and I saw some kids wearing my t-shirts, so I thought that I would talk more about the dance stuff than the prison and the cancer, because it's a little more upbeat. All right, do we have questions?
Don't be shy, guys. Come on. Who's got a question? Okay, here we go. We come around to you real quick.
Try to get it to pertain to me, the question. Yes.
All right, here we go. Tell us your name and where are you from?
My name is Lily and I live in Phoenix, Arizona.
Okay, what's your question for Abby, Lily?
If Kathy owned her own studio, why did you have to teach Vivian?
I don't know. Kathy brought Vivian and she said, are you really doing a television show at your studio? And I said, well, I don't know, I guess. We're gonna see what happens with it. Why don't you come down and we'll go to lunch, do your interview and we'll go to lunch. But the whole time, I'm thinking she's bringing a student and the student's mother. I never in a million years thought she was bringing Vivian and it was her. No, we were friends, like not good friends, but we were colleagues because she was a member of Dance Masters of Ohio and I was a member of Dance Masters of Pennsylvania, and we would meet at nationals. And I always beat the crap out of her. So, yeah. And she would bring her kids down sometimes for me to coach them on interview skills and like the modeling portion, all that. And you are not going to say anymore. Got it? Yes? So she brought Vivi to me because it was part of a TV show. But when she found out she had to fly and travel, she was out. And she had her own school, so that's when they made her my like arch rival nemesis. But they kept giving her the kids from around the country. Those kids weren't from Ohio. My kids were the original team until things happened which forced us to get other kids. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, no doubt. You discovered so many people. Aliana has a question for you, Abby.
I was wondering, do you be on YouTube? Because I see you on YouTube.
Well, it's a good thing you said that.
Yeah.
Because I forgot to say something. And my YouTube people are going to yell at me later. Well, they don't yell at me, but they tell me. So, stop watching the show. Stop watching the show. We do not get residuals. Do you kids know what that means? When you're on a television show and it goes on and on and on, like Grey's Anatomy. If they show repeats of Grey's Anatomy, all those actors get paid. It could be 5 cents, a check for 5 cents, or it could be $5,000 check years later, all right? In reality TV, there are no residuals. So do not watch that YouTube that Lifetime has. Watch my YouTube channel, please. It's Abby Lee Miller. That's all it is. It's under Abby Lee Miller. I do a lot of YouTube stuff. I do it with Jordan Doesn't Matter. I do it with some of the kids, and you can learn a lot. There's tricks. I'm teaching like front limbers and chin stands, elbow stands, and then there's also some tea being spilled as of late.
Oh,
yes.
tea. We love
Yes.
tea.
Okay, next question.
All right, this is from Haley here. You have a question.
What advice would you give for the dance world?
Advice for the dance.
The dance world. So you're a dancer, right?
Okay, so I just did a whole video, like 3 videos on what I look for in a dancer when I'm casting, what a dancer needs to take in their dance bag to auditions. I think we're shooting how to audition, and what it takes to be a professional dancer. You know, being a professional working dancer is much different than being a competition winner. You know, winning a competition is one thing, getting a job, booking a job is completely different. Not often the same kid, but sometimes the same kid. Pink t-shirt, oh, go ahead, honey, go ahead.
What was your name?
Shay,
What's your question?
my question is there going to be a season 9 of Dance Moms?
Let's just say something is in the works.
Ooh.
It will not be on the same network though. It might be on the network that they sold season 1, 2, 3, and 4 to.
How do you audition for it?
For like $18 million or something. Insane. Oh, that's another thing I want to say. So I'm still getting my little measly pay, which I realized was little and measly after I wasn't on season 1 in Pittsburgh anymore, and I realized how I got screwed. But we are in 134 countries. They sold the show to 134 different countries. My voice is in 11 different languages.
Wow.
And
That's a lot.
over 500 dance routines.
She had a follow-up. What was your follow-up question?
If there is, how would you audition to be in the next season?
There'll be open call auditions. We've already, I hate to say it, we've already been holding some of my classes, like I did a spring fling. I did different classes, and we're filming in every class to find the next cast. And I could go on and on for hours. There's so many things that the network prohibited, that contract I signed, it was monetary. There were all these opportunities that I know, I give credit, that came from the show. If I wasn't on the show, they wouldn't have happened. Unlike the children who think that the cover of Cosmo is just gonna show up in Pittsburgh at their school. But I realized it was because of the show. And there was a Broadway show called Dance Moms the Musical in the works that the producers, the writers came to me and wanted to do. And I went to the network and I said, we need to do this. Think of, you could do a whole 6 episodes of a show on casting the musical, finding the kids to play the kids, you know? That would have been incredible, like finding the next Annie. No, they wanted nothing to do with it. No. So many good ideas. Gaming for girls, a video game, interactive around the world, about how to get to the top of the pyramid. All this stuff was all developed. They brought it to me. I took it to the network. Now we're not interested. All right, go ahead.
Okay, this one's from JC.
I was wondering if you could kind of explain like your choreography process and like how you would pick the songs and choreograph to it.
For the TV show or in real life?
Everywhere.
All right.
Because I watch your show and I use some of your dances as like inspiration for my own choreography.
Well, thank you. So many kids watch them over and over and over to learn the numbers. And you'll see a lot of repetition in movement because the kids, what we were dealing with, like we needed to get those numbers done fast. We had the kids for 2 hours on Wednesday and 2 hours on Thursday and 1 hour on Friday before we got on the bus. That was it. 5 hours to teach 3 numbers. So in real life, I know the child because they're my student, right? I choose the music that's perfect for that kid. Listen to hours and hours. Now you can do it on your phone. Then I had to go to Blockbuster Music. There was one in about 2 hours from my house. And I would sit there for all day listening to music. And you have to buy a whole CD for one track, you know. So I did that, found the music, and that was my inspiration. On the show, they wanted a story that would affect the mothers and make them nuts. So they would give us the music on Tuesday, and I hated it. So we would go back and forth all night through the night until Wednesday. That's how it happened. Then we put the movement to the music. And the music was so bad because somebody at the network made a deal with a record library and we had to pull all the music from there. But my own staff in my studio would go out on a limb, like I'd have my secretary calling to, not that same Melissa secretary, somebody else. I would have them contact the artists, try to get a hold of them on social media and see if they would give us for free their music. Like Rachel Sage and the guy that did Where Have All the Children Gone? They gave us that themselves. So I thank them, yes.
Okay, Catlin is next up. What's your question?
Catlin.
What do you have next for Abby?
So besides what you announced about the project coming, what else is next? Also, Catlin's a dancer, by the way.
I know she's a dancer. Where'd you get that shirt?
The store. Your store.
Where?
Your store.
My store. In LA?
Online, she said.
Oh, online. Thank
Yeah.
you very much. I appreciate that. Well, we're constantly working. I'm going to Dallas for this Expo, and I'll be doing a class as well in Dallas, teaching a dance class, like I could have done here, but I really didn't know this setup yet, so now I realize I could have done it. I teach all over the world, and there's a new dance convention coming out that I'll be working with, as well as judging. I judge a lot. They kind of keep it a secret until the kids arrive and then I show up. And then I'm trying to think what else is happening. There's another TV show that's in the works that I'm not doing, but I've been asked to be a part of. We'll see. Keep your fingers crossed because it's a big network. And I've created a scripted show called Dancing with the Dead, and it's for a young adult show. And then I'll show a show that's based on my staycation. It's completely different. It's certainly for adults. It's completely different than dancing. Yes.
I love it. So she's versatile. You're a jack of all trades.
Well, now that I've learned, you know, and I wanted to say for the people that didn't get up and leave or the people that didn't show up late to the talk, all those things that I did as a kid, they all, oh, I forgot I took sewing lessons at Sears. When you buy a sewing machine, you get the lessons at Sears. But now I can tell any seamstress how I want that butterfly sleeve, how I want that skirt applied to that costume. I can cut out a piece of paper and show it to them. Designing all the headpieces, right? Floral arranging. I know it has to be in 3. I know there's a tall, a medium, and a short. Like, I've learned through all the things that I did as a kid that I wasn't really great at, but I've learned from them. So I learned from a TV show, yeah. I learned what not to sign.
What not to sign alone. Okay. Now we have Lyndon here. What's your question?
How do you feel about the way you were portrayed during the show?
How I was
Like portrayed.
portrayed on the show. Well, I think there was a witch hunt in Pittsburgh. The Pittsburgh, whatever they are, Public Defender's Office, spent $4 million. $4 million to come against me, and it ended up that there was 21 indictments, and only one was actually real that happened, and it was that I was maybe going to walk away from a vacation home after the crash in 2008, but I didn't walk away from it. I kept it, and I still have it, and I still pay the mortgage every month. That's why I went away for 8.5 months. That's the one reason. I have a documentary, that's the most important thing, coming out, a documentary, and I wanted to call it How Lifetime Ruined My Life, but I didn't think that was good. It's called Life Sentence, and it's about a lot of things, but mainly, I love your tennis shoes, but mainly about how the prison doctors took me off all my medication cold turkey, which caused me to be in this chair. You know, that you'll see all about that. But I think that had I not been portrayed that way on the show, I would have never been indicted. I would have never been sent to prison. It was all a show. The public defender, his closing line to his statement was, "Is she a dance mom or a dance con?" In a courtroom. So it was all a joke, and it cost me like $1.5 million for attorneys and a forensic accountants and all the people, a crisis publicity person. It was insane. All for that. And what did that get me? Like, it got me in a chair forever. What did Pittsburgh get out of it? I was fined $48,000. That was it. They spent $4 million and got 48 back. And then they paid for me to have a house and food, 3 meals a day, a house, and I lost 127 pounds on them in LA. Housing in Los Angeles, you kidding? They paid for my apartment for 8 months. That's a joke. But I could have been out teaching underprivileged children in the community. I could have done so much more in those 8.5 months, and I wouldn't have ended up in a chair. So I think being portrayed on the show like that is what caused that. Absolutely. Absolutely. But had I not been crazy on the show, would it have lasted 8 seasons? I don't know. 4 would have been good for me. Just 4 and then done, and none of the bad stuff would have happened. Thank you, sweetie.
All right, next up we have Liliana here. What's your question?
How did you handle the dance moms all those years?
Well, you know, now, at first, the dance teachers in the country, in the United States, the dance teachers were like up in arms over the show. Up in arms. I got kicked out of all the organizations that I did a lot for, spent a lot of money on, and they were just up in arms because of how I was portraying a dance teacher on the show. In the meantime, I could rattle off probably 5 studios in Phoenix, Arizona, right here, that are much tougher than I ever was on kids. And it was just the craziness, but there's still moms, and now the moms come into my studio in LA and they act like that. They think that there's a camera watching them, and the crazier they are, that they're gonna have a chance to get on TV. So it's really crazy now. But there were a lot of wonderful mothers that I'm still friends with that were kind and loving and appreciate everything their kids got out of a dance education. Go ahead.
Sorry.
If one more person says, they're doing 50 push-ups, just saying.
So, me and my sister are like dancers, and we have dances like to compete on like starting in October. So I was wondering, like, since you like rhinestone costumes, do you like know of anyone who could rhinestone costumes or like
Design costumes?
yeah?
Yes, of course. I could design it and then send it to a seamstress. So you need a costume design? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, me and my sister.
You and your sister for a duet or solos?
Solos and duets.
And are you having trouble finding a seamstress, or you just want me to do it?
Well, I want you to do it, but I don't know. So,
I can do anything. You take me to Walmart at 2 o'clock in the morning, I can find you something to make a costume out of. Yes, that's what I did on the show. I mean, you don't understand. I had to become in charge of the costumes. I didn't want that job, but they were so bad, and what they were doing is we would have stuff shipped overnight to get it. Their production team was intercepting the mail and not giving it to us, so they could watch me freak out and go crazy about the costumes. In the meantime, the costume companies that I dealt with and my mother dealt with for 30 years were trying to do me a favor and get it done, and so it would be on TV, and then they were grabbing it in the meantime. So I literally was out in the middle of the night trying to find little bras that we could put appliques on, and trunks that we could throw a skirt around. Yeah, it was nuts.
All right, next question here. This is going to be the last question, but I want to let you know Abby Lee Miller's doing a meet and greet right here to the right of the stage afterwards.
Oh, I didn't
Yes.
know that. Okay.
Oh, okay, sorry. Someone was supposed to tell you.
I asked if there was a meet and greet, and they said no. Go ahead.
Okay, here we go. This is from May.
You said you are doing 50 push-ups later.
I'll give you 5.
Oh, she negotiated.
Well, if there are 5 good ones, all right.
Okay.
Or 50 bad ones.
So,
Go ahead.
I'm not a dancer, but I do cheer. And I wanted to ask you to give my mom like a little talk about late night practices, because she gets really mad at me, but like I feel like if she hears it from you, she
Do your rehearsals go long? They go overtime?
not really. It's like right after school at like 4 until 8, and sometimes we run
Over.
from 5 to 9, 5 to 8.
Right. But is the teacher going late? No? It's just over late.
Yeah.
Mom, Uber. You don't have to get out. You don't have to put your clothes on and go pick her up. They have teen Uber, right? They have teen Uber. Get her an Uber car, like thing on her phone, and you don't have to go anywhere. You
get
could stay out of the picture. You don't even need to go to the studio. They're gonna love your kid. Yes? And you have to just figure if the teacher runs late, you're getting those extra minutes for free.
Oh, that's
Be,
I
be
like
grateful.
That. Yeah,
Be
that's
grateful.
great.
Yes. Yes. I went long on a kid's solo one time. I was like backed out, and the dad came in and was like, "This is so ridiculous. Like I've been out here waiting for 30 minutes, and I have to be on the golf course, and blah 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 blah." I said, "She's done right now. I mean, finished, over. I never want you to come back." Because I'm in there giving him more than his half hour that he paid for to try to get the number done for competition, and he's trying to talk to me that way? Nope, done.
All right.
So you have to realize that they're trying to put their best foot forward, and if it's late, you know the times ahead of time, don't sign her up there. But I want to make sure that you are not shaking your pom-poms for some boy to go to school free. I mean, it's cheerleading, like competitive cheer gym stuff. It's not high school flirting with the boys.
She says it's a mix.
All right, just know that when that boy gets recruited by a college, he is not going into the meeting saying, "Oh, but she decorated my locker and she made me cookies. Can she come to school free too?" That is not happening. So get out of that and work on your interview skills for a job. Yes.
Great advice. Hey, everybody, give it up for Miss Abby Lee Miller,
No
one of
one
a
here.
kind. Wasn't she great, everyone? Thank you so much.